is LBC News.
Well, Donald Trump certainly wasted no time in getting down to work after his second inauguration. He has signed off on a raft of executive orders, ripping up more than 80 put in place by his predecessor. They include withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accords, ordering the military to the US border with Mexico, and allowing widespread drilling for oil and gas. The president's also promised to pardon all the January the 6th rioters. Earlier, he told the crowds how he intended to implement his agenda from day one.
I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country.
Well, joining me now live from Florida, I'm delighted to say, is former Nevada Republican Party chairwoman Amy Tarkanian. Amy, appreciate your time this morning. Well, goodness, it was a long inauguration day, wasn't it? Packed with so many events and speeches. But come the end of it, has Trump signaled enough to all of his supporters, ordinary Americans and businesses, absolutely what they want to hear? You know, that he will make their lives better and he will put their needs first as he returns to the White House.
Oh, I think he made it crystal clear. And I think the fact that it was a beautiful decision to actually sign a number of these executive orders in front of his supporters, those who had waited for hours and hours just to get a glimpse of him at the Capitol Arena. So he not only did that in front of the 20,000 plus that were in the building, but you also had the cameras. So it made international eyes and ears. And so I think the fact that he showed that it was action speaks louder than words. You know, I think time and time again, we've heard politicians make promise after promise, and there's very little, if at all, follow through. And so by him doing this publicly, I thought was brilliant.
And I'm just reading now, actually, for the first time now as 47th US president, he's just fired off a late-night social media post punctuated with his catchphrase from reality TV show The Apprentice. It's on Truth Social, and he's just said he's actively in the process of identifying and removing over 1,000 Biden appointees who are not aligned with our vision to make America great again. He went on to name them, and then at the end of that statement he goes, "You're fired." Well, that's typical Trump, isn't it? And yet, you know, Amy, he did make a lot of the same promises back in 2017. America first, drain the swamp, drill baby drill, ending wokeness. Do you think he can make good on those ambitions this time?
Yes, and I think he actually learned a very hard, good lesson the first go around. He was actually found out that it was virtually impossible to, quote unquote, drain the swamp, especially when you surround yourself with people who don't have your goodwill, in mind. And so he has become thicker skinned. He has become, I think, wiser. I'm hoping, and I pray that he continues to surround himself with people who are going to have his back. But I think the fact also, too, that you have the First Lady, and you can see it in her posture. She also is coming in swinging, saying, I'm not naive any longer. You will not take advantage of my family. And I think also, too, it helps that her son Barron is now in college. So I think you're going to see more of the First Lady assist the president, which is going to be helpful. But I think so, too, now that if you see these executive orders, and it's upwards of 200 is what's been announced that he would be signing in the first 24 to 48 hours. A number of these were actually rescinded when President Biden came into office. And so it's a bit of a ping pong game, because now Trump has come back and said, wait a second, I'm bringing everything back, but now I'm bringing it back even better. So he had his policy advisors already working on it before he even took the oath for the second time. And then he also had his cabinet nominations ready to go when they were out doing their due diligence to sell themselves to the members of the Senate before their confirmation hearings. So he did not waste any time for his second term. He's ready to get to work on day one, literally, as we saw, and I think it's just going to become even more aggressive, and it's going to steamroll before our very eyes.
Well, let me just seize on the word aggressive, because he did also pardon, didn't he, around 1,600 people charged over the January 6th attack. The Democrats have now come out and said that that move, and I'm quoting, was an outrageous insult to the police and justice system. Just wondering whether you actually agree with them on that. And also, no doubt, people wanting to cross into the States using the southern border, well, they might be thinking twice about that this morning.
Sure. So starting with January 6th, that was an event that really upset me in his first term. And I do not agree with a full blanket pardon to all of those individuals who participated. I understand you need to take it case by case. And, maybe there were some folks who just got caught up and it was guilt by association. Maybe they hadn't caused any damage or hurt any individuals, but they just happened to be there. However, I think doing a blanket pardon to the entire group is a mistake, but it's his prerogative, and so he chose to do so. So I disagree with that one. The other one is you mentioned the border, and so he's going to end catch and release. He already did that. He's going to be deporting illegal aliens who have a criminal record. He's already declared a national emergency at the southern border, and it's already in play, because they took down President Biden's app where you could apply for an appointment as an illegal, and so you saw people already turning around and removing themselves and walking back across the border, and so it's sending, I think, a very strong, clear message that, as the old saying goes, there's a new sheriff in town.
Certainly is. Let's reflect too, if we may, just finally, Amy. We saw an awful lot of top tech bros up on stage yesterday. Goodness me, that talk about the great and the good and the very, very wealthy. So what messages do you think they might be dripping into Trump's ear now for his second term? Just wondering what they might want from him. And also for Trump himself, after he's hopefully had a really good sleep, day one in the Oval Office fully. What's top of the intro? What about resolving the Ukraine war?
Sure. So, first of all, the fact that they had to move it into the Capitol Rotunda limited the amount of guests who could actually witness in person the oath being taken. And so, yes, I understand it's important to, have your friends close, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. And that right there, to me, would be someone like Mark Zuckerberg, who we know in the first term, Facebook was weaponized, in a number of political avenues. And so now Mark Zuckerberg has all of a sudden, he doesn't want to have to deal with the possible retaliation or verbal lashing or who knows what else from President Trump. So you've got a number of these folks who weren't on board the first time that are now on board this time. It's a different feel. And so when you look at that picture of the individuals who are allowed to sit in there, there are people who are extremely loyal to President Trump that deserved those spots more so than a Mark Zuckerberg. But I guess I get it. He's sending a strong message to the world that he has the top tech giants, supporting him. He's got, American ingenuity and American wealth and power at his back. And I guess, sometimes, when you're dealing with business precedes, emotion. And so, that was interesting. And then what was your second question part of that?
My last question was, his first full day in the Oval Office is looming. What might be top of the intro? What about Ukraine?
Yeah, you mentioned Ukraine, yes. So he's made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to enter any new wars. He wants all the wars to end, and he wants to make sure that any money that goes to anything that's outside of America that we contribute, that there are checks and balances. And so I I don't honestly think he's going to just want to pull out 100%. I think he's going to look at this smartly and probably pull back some of the purse strings, but making sure that things are being used wisely. We already know that it's been reported that we're not sure exactly where all the money has been going. We don't know if it's being used to all the weapons because they're claiming that weapons aren't even getting to them in a timely manner. So I don't think he's going to leave Ukraine high and dry, but there's definitely going to be some changes.
We'll leave it there. We will speak again. Amy, so good to get your analysis and assessment. Thank you so much for joining me live on the line from Florida. Amy Tarkanian there, former Nevada Republican Party chairwoman.